Okay, a couple of thoughts here on three words: relationships, shalom, and true beauty. First of all, relationship. This is the front, right, where we did our planting. So you see what it looked like before, and we have these guys to thank for making that soil nice and loose. This is just a definition of Wikipedia. The way a relationship is the way in which two or more concepts, objects, or people are connected, or the state of being connected. A relationship happens when our life influences the life of another, and vice versa. And obviously, some relationships are stronger or tighter. Some relationships are more relaxed, depending on how frequently those interactions occur. Healthy relationships build healthy communities, both social and ecological. When we worship in buildings, right? Whoops, I wanted to do this. Right? We've got relationship with trees. We should be grateful to the trees for keeping the rain over our heads. We are dependent on the creation for all sorts of things in our daily lives that we far too often take for granted. When these relationships are healthy, then you have healthy communities. When these relationships are strained, it's hard to have a healthy community. A couple other thoughts about relationships. Healthy relationships require effort. They also require humility and grace. Maybe the most meaningful relationship I'm in is with my wife. And we have a good relationship. But there are times when it's strained. And those are times when we haven't put as much effort into it. We realize, wait a second, we've got to slow down. We've got to pay attention to each other. Right? And build that relationship back up again. So it requires effort and humility to recognize that, you know what, I have not been contributing to this relationship as much as I should have been. Or I wasn't contributing to it in the way that I should have been. And relationships need grace. We need to be able to forgive each other, forgive ourselves, and then pledge to move forward. Right? I think about relationships in terms of a symphony. Right? And my students have heard this metaphor before, so forgive me, but I like it. We're part of this grand symphony of creation. And if we think of ourselves as too important, let's say we play clarinet. And we think clarinet is the best instrument in the whole symphony. So we start playing our clarinet super loud. It's the most important instrument, right? Forget it, we've got to drown out those violins. And I mean, that's not a good way to be part of a community. Right? Being part of a community means you listen to the other elements that are there. And you make your contribution fit in to the, and then when everybody's doing that, then it becomes really beautiful. So whether it's in a marriage relationship, within a school community, whatever community we're in, it's so important that we listen to the other members of that community. Make sure that our contributions are not too loud, that they balance, and they complement it, and they work together with our other community members. When communities are working well together in mutual service, in concert, right? Or con-service. Cal DeWitt loves to talk about that word, con-service, conservation. But when communities are working together in mutual service and encouragement, they're expressions of shalom. And let's take a look at that word a little bit more. I'm sure you've heard of it. In English, the translation is peace. So oftentimes if you're reading the Old Testament and you see the word peace, the Hebrew word there was shalom. And we've chosen to use peace as a translation, but a lot is lost in that translation. The Hebrew word, the concept for shalom is much richer. Here's an expanded definition by Dave Wise, taken from his book, The Environment and the Christian. Shalom is God's dream and promise for the fulfillment of his creation. The knitting back together again, or the knitting together of all the brokenness in the cosmos. In the relations between man and man, or man and himself, Man and nature, within nature, and between man, nature, and God. Right? Think of all those triangles, my silly triangle diagrams. Right? When all of that gets put back together again, that's shalom. Another definition I really like a lot is comes from a visit that a good friend of mine had to Israel. He's a religion teacher at Rampage Christian High School, and Larry and I grew up together, so we've known each other our whole lives. And he's a wonderful source to go to for things like this, when we talk about some of these concepts. Anyway, he was in Israel, and he was talking to a Hebrew, or a Jewish rabbi. And he asked this rabbi, if you were to translate shalom into English, what word would you use? And the rabbi thought for a little bit. He said, I'm not sure it's a word, but I think I would translate it as fittingness. I really like that. When things fit together the way they're supposed to, that's shalom. Right? Think back to that orchestra, that symphony. Right? When things are fitting together the way they're supposed to, they're interacting with each other in the way they're supposed to, there's shalom. Or to expand it a little bit, when things become reconciled with each other again. In the nation of South Africa, when the whites and the blacks can get together and work together mutually, boy, that's starting to look shalomic. And very exciting. Here's a couple places in the Old Testament where peace is read in the English version. But think about it, when shalom is used, it has deeper meaning. So I will make a covenant of shalom with them. I will send down showers in season. There will be showers of blessing. The trees of the field will yield their fruit, and the ground will yield its crops. The people will be secure in their land. They will live in safety, and no one will make them afraid. What a beautiful picture of shalom. All these elements of creation interacting in the way that God intended them to do. And this one too, when I was thinking about this, after reading this passage from Isaiah, boy, it just really, really grabbed me. For to us a child is born, to us a son is given, and the government will be on his shoulders, and he will be called Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, Prince of Shalom. Of the increase of his government and shalom, there will be no end. So Jesus is identified as the Prince of Shalom. He's the one that makes it possible to put all that brokenness back together again. All right, the third word, beauty. Again, Wikipedia. The experience of beauty often involves an interpretation of some entity as being in balance and harmony with nature, which may lead to feelings of well-being. I've come across this Irish philosopher, John O'Donoghue, who's written a lot on aesthetics, on what people think of as beautiful and why they think of things as beautiful. And he points out that the word beauty in the Greek is kalon, and kalon comes from the same root as kalim, which is where we get our word calling. He goes on to say, we have this phrase, and say she or he really found her his calling in life. When someone gets that job, right, where their gifts are connected to the world's needs, and they're happy doing it, they're passionate, there's a fitting there that's going on, right? And the root there is beauty. That's beautiful. When somebody has found their calling, it's really beautiful about that. I think all too often here in North America, we get confused. We think of things like glamour or prettiness as beauty. And those are cheap varieties of beauty, all right? That doesn't get at the true meaning at all. So we got to be careful that we don't get fooled by glamour or by prettiness. And I put this picture up here because, this is where my class this semester did this restoration planting. and they put in a lot of native plants. And they put them in together, and they, this is the area that's going to highlight edibles. Hopefully Paul can use this in the future, both to eat and to show kids. And here is a highlight the grasslands, that the students were really sort of taken by those grasslands and how nice they looked, right? And, for a lot of people, if they walk down here, now, or even in a year when things really fill in, they might not really think that looks that beautiful. Maybe if, for a lot of people, this was filled, I'll pick on my own culture, with tulips. Wall-to-wall tulips. Oh, boy, that would be beautiful. You see, they're getting confused, because wall-to-wall tulips would be glamorous. It wouldn't be beautiful. And I would suggest that what these students have put in here is going to be beautiful, really beautiful. The way it'll attract insects and all these other things. And this whole business about what we think of as beautiful is the whole area of aesthetics. Right? Principles that deal with the nature and appreciation of beauty is called aesthetics. The whole area of philosophy is around this. What is it that causes people to see some things as beautiful and other things as not? And I do think this comes into play with creation care, right? A lot. If we could have our aesthetics informed by Shalom, right? Or informed by sustainability, I think we would think about the world around us a lot differently. And I think a lot of our challenge is to get people's aesthetics shifted away from things that are not Shalom or are not contributing to sustainability, but instead are sort of keeping us away from that. So then, to pull these three thoughts together, here in Matthew, Jesus says, "Blessed are the peacemakers." Now this was written in Greek originally. Jesus didn't speak Greek. This is where my friend Larry, who teaches religion, helps me out. Jesus didn't speak Greek, he spoke Aramaic, which is kind of like street Hebrew. So the Greek word there that was used was irene, which is the Greek's language best option for shalom. And so Larry, and he has talked to other people about this too, says probably Jesus used that word shalom when he said, "Blessed are the peacemakers." It's most likely that that's the word he used in Aramaic. So blessed are the shalom makers, for they will be called children of God. And I think it's really cool that the Son of God, who is known as the Prince of Shalom, says, "Blessed are the shalom makers," because then you are going to be called children of God, just like me. So we're being Christ-like, right? When we are in the business of making shalom, putting things back together again. And then Romans 8:19, creation waits in eager expectation for the children of God, those shalom makers, to be revealed. Creation is waiting for us to show up and do the work of shalom, putting things back together again.